Hey,
Ciao, Giusy.
ciao. Sorry.
Oh, don't worry, don't worry. This is the new norm, huh? We all have to get used to this.
You look like it's like that. So very,
No,
very pleased to see you here. How are you doing?
very, very well. I mean, there is no stay-at-home order in the Netherlands, so we are actually out and about. I don't know if that's good or bad, but yes, very good to see you. So should we kick it off and have the discussion?
I think it's amazing. I'm really looking forward to it. It's such an important moment, for us to discuss.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there is, well, let's first introduce myself. I'm Dio Kurazawa. I'm one of the founding partners of the Bear Scouts. We basically help the supply chain to be more responsible in order to help brands be more responsible. And now we also help retailers to be more responsible when they adopt these new brands. We do this with the help of C.L.A.S.S, of course, but we have a lot of partners that we really rely on in order to make this happen.
So thanks for introducing. And, my name is Giusy Bettoni. I'm, the founder of C.L.A.S.S. Founder sounds a little bit old, but that's what happened in 2007. And our major aim is really to include responsibility into the paradigm of fashion, so in the supply chain. So something, of very value. So we are talking about smart innovation, we are talking about ethical, but we are talking about new ways to produce, new way to think about, design, because it's really important. And we know that platform and supply chain are key, and that's why the collaboration with the Bear Scouts and also with the other partners that are part of our, let's say, circuit. I like to say like this. So.
Yes, awesome. So, I mean, one of the things that we've been talking about, and I know you have lots of questions for me, but maybe we can start the discussion is, it's obviously very important to consider where we are right now with COVID and taking the learnings from COVID and applying them to where we're trying to get to from a climate change perspective, but also from a responsible fashion perspective. Obviously, for me, there's a lot of there's links. I'm definitely, and I'm sure where you are, you can see that the air is cleaner. People are taking photos of Venice, and you can see, sea life, and pictures in Mumbai are amazing. You can see, the earth is really healing itself. But I think the economy and climate change are linked. This is clear. We talk about the deaths that are associated right now with COVID-19. There are plenty, and I'm very sorry for that, and that's very unfortunate. But if you consider air pollution, I think 4.5 million to 7 million people die annually based on air pollution and the poor quality of air. And that has a direct link to, obviously, the economy. So, I'm interested in figuring and finding out what your opinions are about these types of these conversations and these facts, and what learnings can we take from COVID and apply them to climate change.
Thank you, Dio. I think that is exactly the point. We have heard about, many things now about the COVID, like an era, like a new way of living. But what worries me is that we have people that is saying that, after COVID, sustainability is not anymore, or climate change is not anymore a priority. And this is a little bit, I think, crazy, from my perspective, because it's true that everything stopped. You can see, all the cities and, all, the kind of pause we are in. I like to think about we are in reset mode, but not in stuck mode, because the stuck means, nothing is happening. Maybe nothing is happening in the street, but a lot is happening inside of the system at the moment, because a lot of people has took the opportunity to rethink on how to do things, and that's, to me, is the most important thing. A lot of people is saying it's time to rethink about how we produce and how we consume. And for me, these are two key points. And also another one too, but for me, it's, it's part of my everyday life, it's the consumer. is the consumer is the funding point at this moment, because everything that is sustainable and is going to consumer, it has to go through the trade. We know very well, we have to start, from the supply chain of the yarn, the fabrics, the garment maker, the retailer. But today, it looks like we are in another perspective where the consumer needs to know first, and it's ready to be united for the first time in order to do things better. So different way of produce, different ways of consume, and a new consumer, I think it's a lot to take care. And these tell us that is, if yesterday climate change was a priority, today it's even 10 times more. We have, a responsibility that is even more important. What do you think, Dio?
Well, I mean, it's clear that, I just saw that someone has written about that. This is actually the new norm. And that's true to some extent. It is the new norm, but it's a lot to do with what we do with this time. I speak to manufacturers almost on a daily basis, and they're all very curious. Some of them are very dismayed because of the cancellation of orders and a loss of money. But a lot of them now are taking the time to say, well, how can we achieve a stronger base, a stronger business model that, I can't say COVID-proof, but that considers the current environment that we're living in. Because obviously what we're dealing with right now, we'll probably deal with it again and again and again. And I think what's important is that, while the world is not embracing climate change and it's not blasted over media as much as COVID is, because it's not it's to me, it's immediate. If you consider air pollution, if you consider deforestation, if you consider, how workers are treated and things of that nature. But, what we need to really think about is how do we move forward and take advantage of the beautiful slowdown that we see right now. If we can have measured or planned economic slowdown, and still hold on to the ability to see the stars at night, to still hold on to the ability to actually innovate before just creating in hopes of selling, I think those are the things that we should be trying to embrace at this moment, and not looking for getting back to what we used to know, because those days are really, truly over.
Absolutely. I'm really convinced that, we hear people saying, well, we would like to go back to where we were before, but I don't think it's what we need. If we are now thinking and try to find, I heard that even in Italy, that is not one of the capital of technology, for example, we have been forced into 2 weeks, all the schools are online now, something that has been refused for a long time. So, and they are enjoying it. There is something really positive about it. So sometimes, it's not the best way. When you have to, the human being is able to do things that they never even thought about. So for us, this is really a huge, opportunity. And to me is, about sharing knowledge as well in the best way. So that's why, for example, for this Fashion Revolution Week, to us as C.L.A.S.S, we wanted to share where we are, what is happening, especially at consumer level. So to have this conversation with you about where we are with supply chains, because supply chains is everything, And when I hear that, people has got a private Facebook to do, education in the denim chain or in the apparel chain, something that they never done in their life, I think there is a lot, not just hope, but there is a new culture coming that we need to be ready. And at the same time, I think technology and innovation, responsible in innovation and responsive technology, meaning let's go forward where we have not been able to get there. Now it's really important. Also because we have another challenge at the moment at COVID. We have been talking about the fact that people need masks, people need lab gowns, and generally speaking, these materials are not degradable at all. Polypropylene or polyethylene or polyester, but these are normally things that people relied like commodities, was costing nothing. It was something, produced in Europe till 5 years ago that completely changed, but just because it looked like it was something not so important, and now it's the center of the stage. And, it's really important to know where the things are coming from, how you process them, and where they're going. So without this kind of dynamic for everything, and we can see that the consumer for the first time understand what globalization means for health and for economy. So, and I'm sure if they know that, the mask will remain here like the plastic that we have in the ocean, we have other opportunities, and we will develop, also together, I think, DODs. But I think we need to share. And, we organize at C.L.A.S.S these, smart voices, because the voices of the people has to stay and to come and to share, because knowledge is power. But if you do not share knowledge, what's the point? And this goes back also to all the promotional tools that we had till now. If it's true that we are in the first era of revolution, are we going to use the same tool that we have been using till now? I'm not against fashion shows, but I don't think it's the only way to do things. Maybe, Dio, what do you think?
Well, I think we should use this time to continue to innovate. I mean, you guys do a great job of innovating and working with your partners to bring to the market things that are just gobsmacking. And I think I know that Luca just gave a great presentation with immortality sense. Is that how you say it? Yes.
Immateriality sense reality. Yes.
Yeah. That type of technology are the reasons why we can get the attention of the supply chain. They need answers. They need solutions to tell their brand partners or their clients that will help them to create things more responsibly, so that we're not in the position later in 2030 that we didn't actually reach our goals. So the continuation of implementation, working with EU policymakers, working with policymakers, period, is super key. I mean, obviously, policymakers currently are very much inundated with COVID, but you cannot, ignore climate change at this moment. Climate change is super detrimental to everything. Everything that's happening on the earth right now, COVID, is a part of, the issues that we're dealing with climate change. So, I can't wait for anyone in government to change anything. This is why we started the Bear Scouts. This is why you also started C.L.A.S.S. We have to continue and and motivate each other to continue to bring about innovation that will help the supply chain, that will help get us out of the mess that we're in, but in a better place overall. So I'm looking at the current environment as a sort of not benefit is the wrong word, but let's say inspiration, and saying what's now, the action around COVID should be the same action around climate change. You know what I mean?
It's part of the game.
It's part of the game. So if I think about moving things digitally, of course, things need to move into we're the designers in-house now are looking at, designing in 3D. Of course, we're a part of a lot of different events that will have to then also move into a digital position. What happens when we have to, produce garments and develop fabrics, when they can't, when someone has to not physically touch them any longer because we have to ship things back and forth? Immortality sense helps that, eventually will help that. But, what do we do in the mean and between time? We have to move in a direction that basically ticks the boxes of, that deals with the things that we can no longer do. Travel, you mentioned the other day. When am I able to come to Italy again? When am I able to take my clients to a manufacturer? When is that day going to come? Is that day going to come? I can't wait for that. We all have to, innovate and think of ways and evolve, just like we always do, to figure out how we can still keep climate change, keep responsible fashion, sustainable fashion at the forefront, because it's not going to go anywhere.
Absolutely, I fully agree. And I think we have a sort of priority, let's say, levels, and there are things that we still need to solve, because touching things and be able, fashion is also about emotion, a fabric, a color, you can do many things, and there are many things happening. But I think we still have a little bit of time to go in order to get to a fantastic solution. But at the same time, we need to start act as a new normal, for example, to understand where things are done and how people is doing things, and to share this, because it has to be like that. Or we cannot be surprised if at the end certain things are not there. At C.L.A.S.S, we say that we are looking to the three-dimensional values, you know. Three-dimensional means it has to be beautiful because we choose with the eyes. It has to be innovative because we are part of today, and it has to be responsible. And innovative and responsible today means also be healthy, you know, be healthy.
Without
you know, and be healthy doesn't, you know, means not just the fact that, you know, and it should be normal, you know, to sell something healthy, not, but sometimes we know it's not there, but also healthy from the fact that maybe now is too much, you know, in terms of traveling. But I personally realize that I can do much more at distance that I was doing before. So maybe it's not black and white, but for sure there are other ways to do it. For sure it's not perfect, but I think, you know, climate change as part of the traveling system, for example, could be much better. So I think we have a fantastic startup. We have a new generation of people that are working so young and doing fantastic things. We need, I think, to speed up these things, and at the same time to be so transparent to our consumer and to communicate with them in a completely different way with measurement as well, you know. And in the next day I will be having two conversations with two main organizations that has done exhibition. So we are talking about culture now. One in Italy with Museo Ferragamo that has launched last year, you know, the sustainable thinking, you know, that is an exhibition where the Museo Ferragamo with Stefania Ricci, the director, has put together art, designer and materials for the first time, all dedicated to, for the consumer to understand what is behind, because it's not easy, you know, to understand what is behind a garment. You know, it's very complex. And they did it in a way that is really mirroring the kind of culture of Ferragamo itself and the savoir-faire of certain things. And then we have in New York someone like, you know, Arcadia Earth, is organization by Valentino Vettori, that has represented in Manhattan these three-dimensional, you know, exhibitions, so done all in digital for the oceans. You know, to interconnect people. It's not just talking about it. When you say what is sustainability, a lot of people will think about, you know, organic cotton or the bad things or the pollution. But when you have the chance to touch base and to see the, you know, all the shades and all the expression that you can have in sustainability, meaning a new way to do things, a new way to, you know, go in, you know, to level that was not there before, and is still beautiful, but it's much better for your current performance. I think it's really great, but consumer needs to know it.
What I think is super important is that we have a sort of a consistent education that's happening between ourselves, the consumer, the retailers, the brands, and the supply chain. You know, I don't know how much response or how much request you're getting right now as far as fabrication is concerned. I mean, I'm from brands, and retailers alike. I get on a daily basis the question of who's open for production. You know, what can we do from a production perspective? But what I find that's missing is the bit you just talked about right there. We're not actually stopping and really reevaluating the normal process of going about the production of garments. We're, you know, from a retailer, brand, and consumer perspective. And I guess more from the supply chain and a retailer or brand perspective is probably something that I think we need to consistently speak on, because consumer behavior is consumer behavior. I think these days we see the consumers behaving differently because they're having to stay home. But you know, if we open the doors to everyone, what are your thoughts about when things are no longer locked down? Do you feel like, and I'm just going to be honest, I feel like it's going to be a race to the finish. You know, everyone's going to work double time trying to get back what they've lost. And that's truly, obviously, the wrong way of going about things. I don't think they'll be successful in trying to do so. I think there's going to be a lot of things, you know, hurdles and stumbling blocks in their way. But Are you getting a sense that maybe things will go back to kind of business as usual once there's a bit more of like free reign?
I think, as usual, there is part of the people that thinks that, should be normal, meaning without any kind of background, any transparency, nothing. It's just products that has to cost less
Right.
and to have a lot of things and a lot of waste. We still have this kind of people, but we know that there is another part that will be really even more interested. At C.L.A.S.S, we are receiving more and more, and we had to evolve our model, our platform because of that. Because we started just to, we wanted to show the evidence of and to be inspirational for new technology that was also sustainable. But we had to enlarge our view to the newcomers, because a lot of them, they are not even thinking to do something that is not sustainable, but they had problem to get the materials, in this moment, in this timing where everything, fairs, textile, online, you had these people begging for things, and they were so upset with me because you said, Giusy, you're going around the world to talk about this amazing thing, how we can get them? So we had really to open up the doors, and we have done this, it's called Smart Source, where we try to have the most advanced material that could be sold to them from 1 meters to 50 meters. It's a small thing, but which is the best education to tell them what is going on and which is the level so that they can use the things in the right way. So the answer is someone will try to proceed in the same way, but I think it's going to be it's a question of time, because, we need to go to another level for ourselves. Because if we go on in this way, it's going to come back. It's, we cannot, not take care of the climate change and to see, I was talking to Valentino Vettore on Sunday, he's from New York. He was in Woodstock, and it was snowing. And in Italy, we had snowing. He showed me, we were doing the call, and, it's not normal. It's not normal.
No, there is no normal.
So when we talk about normal, I say, what is it? The normal should be that the consumer can get great things to wear, great meaning from a design, but also from a good perspective, because it's next to the body, because we are ethical, so people can have a good job, and to establish a good flow. So not say that it's, easy, but I'm sure that we are there. And, not everybody, but that's the word, that's the human being. That's why we're not perfect. But it's our responsibility, Dio, to push for it. It's like the push and pull things. People that say it's not. I remember when I started in 2007, they were saying me, it's not possible to have fabrics that are innovative and for performance, for high-tech things that are also sustainable. It's wrong. It's coming. So it's just a question.
What do you feel about, similar to the response to the Australian fires, if you remember that, a lot of brands and retailers were creating merchandise to, financially help those that were affected by the fires. And obviously the merchandise they were creating, they weren't creating them in a responsible way. So it's actually, a double-edged sword. What do you think about these, the N95 mask with the polypropylene, with the in them? Is that not essentially, I can tell you yesterday in the Netherlands, 800,000 units of masks were imported from China yesterday. And obviously they have the plastics in them. At the moment, the recycling plants are not running at 100%. The normal way of getting rid of these masks, let's say the responsible way of getting rid of these masks are no longer in place, or at least not working 100%. And of course, I don't know if you're aware, but the EPA has actually laxed their requirements in the US based on the COVID at the moment. So even large organizations in the US don't have to follow EPA guidelines at the moment. what do you think the future is, or the solution is for those types of issues? And obviously, they're probably going to end up in a landfill or being incinerated. But should we not educate people on? I think you mentioned before, PLA is another alternative that can be used in place of the current plastics in N95 masks.
Absolutely, but this is, it's really frustrating because it looks like that we are in the communication era, but the communication is not flowing. You know, I'm part of different groups all over the world that, are talking about new materials, new things, new way to communicate, but nobody knows quite anything about the real things. If you still ask today what is sustainable, the kind of, feedback, generally speaking, is very low. But, if you look how we communicate sustainability in the stores, then you understand that there is a big gap. And that's why I think the new business model that are working at the moment are not linked to the supply chain as it was conventionally, but it is directed to the consumer. You said as well, Dio, that you are talking to retailers. We at C.L.A.S.S, we are also talking to retailers. We have seen, the McKinsey report in 2019 that was saying that retailers, has understood that consumer is looking for not just for generic sustainability, they want data about these sustainable things. And retailers got the point that they're missing business. They're not just missing, they're missing a new business because there is the engine, that is getting, last year it was 75% of the consumer more are looking for sustainability and they cannot get it. And it's, and it's not enough to say it's organic or it's recycled. It's much more than that. So I think one of the solution into brackets is really to change a little bit the way we communicate and to whom we are communicating, because we started C.L.A.S.S in 2007 and I remember huge market research that was saying, consumer wants sustainable thing. Who is the consumer that today do not want something that is good for them? Nobody. Okay. But if you do not tell them why sustainable, which are the value behind, and the value can be, it has the transparency about where it's coming. It's an ethical thing, is not using water. There are many of these dimensions. But if we do not say it, how people can evaluate it. So I think we are in front about a new change. And the first one is transparency, where transparency is also telling people about the value that they're buying. This means a huge, strong education on social media, on e-commerce, but also in the stores.
Yeah, a platform. I mean, what you're doing, basically, every time I see you flying around the world, you're basically giving everybody the education around responsible fashion. And what I find that we lack is the proper platform. I mean, it's great that we have Instagram, that we can have this live chat here, but in fact, why are we not on Netflix, having this discussion about where the world is going? My manufacturers are all up in arms about, okay, now we need to figure out a new way forward, Dio. What is the new way forward? How can we continue? And I think there's a reality that needs to hit everyone. The way forward is not the way that we used to do things. The way forward is innovation, and figuring out how do we continue to move forward and evolve without straining the environment, right?
That is the objective, that is the objective. Maybe at the beginning it's not 100%, perfect, but we're going there. For example, you were talking about the mask. We know that international level, there are materials that are good for lab gowns and masks, but also the one for hospitals that are completely degradable. They are cradle to cradle. There are these materials that are used especially for hygienic products, but at the moment they are not considered the right one because simply they are not so commodity. But they can become, into bracket, the good commodity. So commodity meaning that everybody can have for wipes, baby wipes, and for these things. And, it's cradle to cradle. This means that it's not going to go back to the earth unless, it's not even contaminating it. And so this is a big answer. It's going to cost more because the first question is about cost. No.
That's that question here. It's because of price. Yes, Reese.
Well, in the past, I think so. Today, if you explain your value, I think people understand it.
Yes.
And I think in this moment, I think the fact that it's not remaining in the environment, and it's not so difficult, I think you are saving a lot of money and a lot of value all over the world for people like us that is living on the earth and do not want to see the mask inside of the fishes tomorrow, because we know that
masks, we have, everything is in fact affecting our way of life because we're discarding it in a way. And we're using materials that are not breaking down, and we're discarding things just without thinking about it. And I don't really know how to make this a priority. I think this is the thing that I hijack the supply chain. I hijack as many brands and retailers as possible to try and convince them of my way of thinking or our way of thinking. But in fact, it's like the news media or the governments or the policymakers, they're so busy fighting the immediate fire that they don't think about the whole picture, the helicopter view. And the helicopter view is telling us that we need to care for all of this stuff. If we think about carbon tax, that's something that's possible. Why not? If when things get back to a new norm, we should be considering a carbon tax in order to keep control of the CO2 emissions. But what can we? I mean, obviously, I cannot do everything. You cannot do everything on your own. But we really need to do what we can to convince these policymakers, to convince the world that this is a topic that needs to be dealt with on a daily basis. When you consider what you're putting on every day, consider how does that affect the world? It has an effect on the world. The masks have an effect on the world. PPE has an effect on the world. Even though you're saving lives in the short term, of course you're saving lives in the short term. And of course I want first responders to be. You just had an unfortunate incident where you had to be in the hospital. I mean, you want everyone there to be equipped to assist you. But at the same time, we need to be able to consider the overall impact of the world. Yeah. So
I agree totally. And last but not least, I think all of these means also competence. Yes. And sometimes when we talk about fashion, it looks like we need just to be emotional. And I think it has to be emotional because I wear what I like, but on the other side, I'm sure that in 2020, I want more. And people want more. And in order to give this answer, you need to be competent and not just greenwashing, okay, to give answer. That's where at C.L.A.S.S we are trying to go in a very simple way. So trying to get materials and sharing the importance of materials. And materials does not just mean fabric or material, but also processes, the process of dyeing, finishing, the machines. We are going to present in June a brand new platform where C.L.A.S.S is going to include really the whole thing, where you have the future devices, because, if you have this amazing thing, how to communicate them? You need other tools. And then the second part is the academy, where you need to share. If you have amazing thing, and if you're not able to share, and share means also to communicate, with agents, for example, or brands or retailers in a certain way, because that's what consumer is looking for. So it's a big challenge. But as you said from the beginning, the only way to do it is that 1 + 1 is making 4 today. So, we have to work together, and the platforms and the supply chains are really important. So
amazing. Yeah.
And thank you so much for today. I think we should do from time to time, Dio.
I'm obviously home. You're home.
Well, but even after, I think it's important, even just to share the latest news in innovation, in any kind of what a brand is doing, a retailer is doing, just to share that things are happening. And this week it is going to be really interesting. Share, have a look at C.L.A.S.S program for this week, We'll end up 29th of April with a chat, with Fashion for Development, that it's, the part of United Nations to support the Sustainable Development Goal, where we will be talking really about, the new normal in industry, because that's what we need.
But that one more time. What day was that?
It's 29th of April. But on our, website, you can see our agenda, because we thought that this experience of Smart Voice is so positive that we are going to have more of this, and we will give the voice.
Right. I know you're doing a lot with education as well. I mean, how are you managing that? Because obviously, there's a lot of universities that are just doing online. Is this something that you're working on as well from an online perspective?
Absolutely. We are already cooperating with major university in the world, and we are giving in these days, since March, we are doing, me and Luca, it's specialty, because Luca is really the education guy inside, especially when it comes to materials. He's the one, really. But on top of this, we have our own, let's say, academy course, that is the Introduction to Sustainability, the materials in detail, the new and the next one, and also what circular economy mean, from a very concrete perspective, where everything, each one of these course has also a very important part about how to market and how to communicate. Because if we have a fantastic sustainable things and we are not able to communicate our values, just expensive. As you know. So yes, we are improving, and we are improving the new part, always with Luca, about the new technology, digital technology, about again communication as well. So at the beginning, but step by step, and with the help of friends and colleagues like you, we are advancing quite in a steady way. So
yes, great. I look forward to more of that, because obviously in this time we need to hear about these great new innovations, the new options that are available, of course with Luca's help, etc. But we definitely I think we should work together to figure out what platforms can we consistently offer this advice on, this information, because I know a lot of brands and a lot of retailers, and for sure the supply chain, they're very much in need of a way forward during these times. So it'll be really good to work with you, and I look forward to working together with you on those measures.
Thank you, and thank you to all that were with us today, and listening to us. We will be available anytime. You know how to get us. We are locked down in the house, but very active for everything. So thanks a lot, and have a great day.
You too. Thank you, guys. Until I see you tomorrow.
Ciao.
4 p.m. We should tune into class. Take care.
Ciao. Thank you.
Bye-bye.